Hello, and welcome to another edition of the reality show here on the Ayn Rand Center UK. I'm Kirk Wilcox, and today we have a lot of things to talk about, a lot of interesting stories, apology tours, and buy local campaigns. But first, we're going to talk about this recent report about how, out of Mediaite, how MAGA fans are more likely to trust information coming from former President Trump than their own friends and family. But first, I want to introduce our guests on today's show. We have Mr. John Waz, artist. How's it going today?
Great, I'm great.
And we also have Mr. Thomas Bisson.
Good to see you all.
And then we also have Jim Brown, who does a recurring show here, Hard Money Jim. And it looks like we have just been joined by Mark Pellegrino. Oh, hi, Mark.
What's up?
All right. So, yeah,
Thomas, Thomas, by the way, I just wrote you an email.
Oh, amazing.
Thanks.
So, yeah, who wants
Sorry
to
to
start?
take care of personal business.
How about we start with you, Mark? What do you make of this story about how MAGA fans are more likely to trust information coming from former President Trump than their own friends and family?
I think they have very bad friends and family. What else can you say? I mean, the guy's been caught in multiple lies. He lies as easily as a prostitute gives it up on Sunset Boulevard. So this is, to me, this is just more of the tribalism that's out there, the deification of a man that I used to see quite a bit on the left. I mean, the left, I don't think, has a president that it doesn't deify in some fashion. And the right was really very hesitant to do that. I don't think Republicans claim, with the exception of Reagan and possibly Lincoln, to deify any president. But the left has a whole pantheon of godlike people, and now we're in the cult of personality with Trump, and it's a very scary thing that gives this guy a tremendous amount of demagogic power to do some crazy things in 2024. I don't know if anybody else is a little bit freaked out. Anybody else who lives in the States is freaked out about the coming election in 2024. His diehard followers are not intimidated by the fact that he's being indicted, that he may go to jail. None of that is deterring them from supporting him, and he's using that as a lever in many respects to wedge between people's trust in the government, which I think is justifiable, but he's using it even more to gain power. So I think we're in scary times. It's scary that people actually believe that, and I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of this is just a consequence of Americans for decades just being kind of, buying into this idea that you should, trust the government, especially, with institutions like the public school system, where Americans have bought into this idea like, yeah, we'll trust the mayor and city hall to collect taxes from us and pool all the money together, spend it wisely, every red cent wisely, to pool all this money together to create this system where we're going to teach all the kids in the community how to read, how to write, and history and science and all of that stuff. And then, you bring this out to, people are, of course, going to trust politicians and the government more than their family, because that's kind of what they've been taught.
I actually think that there's also a level of, adolescent defiance to this sort of adherence to this guy, irrespective of what he does in reality. When Hillary Clinton called all of her supporters deplorables, she just said out loud what the left kind of thinks of the right and has for decades and decades and decades. And there's only so long you can take being called, a mouth-breathing redneck jerk-off before you start saying, okay, screw you. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to be in your face with my nastiness and my badness. And it feels like it's that adolescent rebellion that's coming out now.
What do you think, Mr. Bisson?
When I think about the Donald Trump situation, I first agree with what Mark says in terms of it goes to show the quality of friends and family these people probably have and how trusting they are of them. But I think Dave Chappelle actually summed up why he has so much trust very succinctly. Now, whether or not you like David Chappelle, he gave this one little comedy sketch where he's just like, he's on the stage and he said the one thing that, no one's ever said before. And that was, the system is rigged. I know the system is rigged because I use the system. And he was the first person that ever sort of come out and said that straight away. And even Dave Chappelle was just like, from that point on, he was like, no, Obama, shut up, let the man talk. And I think when someone in that kind of position agrees or sort of pulls the curtain back, whatever you want to call it, on things that people suspect or the injustice that they feel in normal everyday and working America, that probably buys a lot of trust. It's like, man, he's going against the grain. This guy's speaking it how it is. And that, I think, gives him a lot of leeway and a lot of forgiveness when he does lie about certain things.
Yeah, I think the Dave Chappelle sketch, I think that was an SNL monologue, if I'm recalling correctly. But what about you, Jim? What do you think about this recent report that we're seeing?
I have a lot of thoughts. Let me try to focus on some that might be interesting. One thing that strikes me about this article is I always like to ask when I see any article, why am I reading this and why am I reading it now? So this author, whoever, clearly has some kind of a agenda, an axe to grind. He wants to excoriate Donald Trump. Trump deserves to be excoriated, but he also is clearly picking on his supporters and his fans. Now, yes, of course, Donald Trump lies, and I'll bet you that all these so-called MAGA fans would agree. Yeah, not all, many would agree. Sure, he's a liar, but so what? Honestly, you look at every person named here. I don't know if Joe Biden's named, Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, these attorneys, these people are horribly dishonest, lying SOBs, every one of them. And so the idea that, he's a liar, but still people still believe in him, I just think is kind of ludicrous. Do people believe in Joe Biden? The man has plagiarized his way. You don't need to denounce him. He's plagiarized his way to everything. He lies daily. And I don't honestly anymore with him. I don't know if it's lies or just he has no idea what's happening anymore because he's so senile. So in addition to the juxtaposition of you believe a politician more by a small margin in this survey, whether it's valid or not, by a small margin over your own friends and family. Well, I can tell you, I got a big bunch of friends and family, and I don't believe much of what they say. I mean, okay, they get things wrong. So do I. So I always like to check, if they say something controversial, I'm going to check. They tell me it's raining outside. I'm going to look out the window and see, that's the way I feel about it. So I don't know. I think this particular media outlet has a big axe to grind on, grinding on Donald Trump. Fine, he deserves it. One thing I do strongly agree with Mark is, my God, what choices we have. It's just appalling, a little alarming. And the way I take comfort in what is looks to be the upcoming election is, I actually don't think it's going to be Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. I don't think Joe Biden's going to make it. I think he's going to run out the clock, resign. It's probably going to be Gavin Newsom, and that's maybe even worse. So Trump versus Newsom. maybe Trump won't make it either. Maybe these indictments, as silly and as over the top as they are, will have some effect, and he won't actually run. I will say, as just one final thing, these indictments, what are they, 91? I would like you to find me a serial killer who has had this level of scrutiny and these kind of indictments. These are 3 different jurisdictions who have all coordinated with each other to charge him with, and if you read the indictments, which I have, most of them are ludicrous. They're just silly. It's going to be impossible to treat them as crimes. So it seems clear that there's a motive here to smear him in advance of the election. The question is, will it be successful or not? So maybe I can just throw out a question. If someone you held dear were falsely accused of something, you believe that this person was falsely accused of crime, and a serious crime, would you not rally behind that person to defend him? So, in other words, if these alleged crimes of his are all or mostly just ludicrous, allegations, and I think most of them are, would you not be tempted to defend him? And you can see most of the other Republican candidates, are either being coy and not defending him overtly, or they're not condemning him for these crimes because they know they're ludicrous. But some are even saying, like Vivek Ramaswamy, are saying, hey, these are so ludicrous that if I'm president, I'll pardon this guy day one. So, you can see, I think, why the base is rallying in favor of Donald Trump, because this appears to be such a gross injustice that whether you like it or not, it offends your sense of justice and offends your sensibility. Okay, I'm gone on for 5 minutes now, so I'll let someone else speak.
You're right. This is a very complicated situation where I think there are claims to justice on the sides of the people that are defending him, but there's also this adolescent form of rebellion. There's also this sticking the thumb in the eye of the establishment, which in some respects also is complicated, and I think also is justified. I think, sticking the thumb in the eye of the establishment is a uniquely American approach to the political establishment. I think it's what makes us unique. It's what makes us exceptional. And that part of the personality of the Trump movement is something I want to preserve. I think it's very good. And you make a lot of great points, Jim. There's certainly 91 counts of an indictment is piling on like nobody's business. It's specifically to get it's probably to turn witnesses against him, to corrupt, it's corrupting the pool. It's attempting to make headlines, and it's definitely a smear campaign in the highest order. Hopefully we'll get to the bottom of this. It's sad that the Republicans don't have enough spine to come out and actually protect somebody who's their political rival. Woz, what do you think of this?
Oh, well, it's a mess. I don't know. You guys have covered quite a bit already, but I think that there's a lot going on, like you said, and I even could see this article in and of itself as being a little bit of a fanning of the flames of tribalism, just to bring that kind of idea up. And it's like, well, I don't trust my family and friends like automatically, or I don't trust anyone other than my own judgment automatically. So I'd like to actually see numbers and see if it's gone up or down, over time, if people trust their family more or less. Now, the troublesome aspect is that people just trust Trump so much as a politician, when for decades, people would say, oh yeah, you can't trust politicians at all. And now all of a sudden this guy gets a free reign of trust. I mean, yeah, the poll covered more than just those couple issues. It also asked if people trusted the media and the drug companies and all these other things, and those are way lower than family. So those numbers from what I can remember. So, it's just the fact that they trust him so much. It doesn't matter who they trust him over, in my opinion. But I mean, one maybe good aspect is it did say that the poll was out of people who had voted for Trump in 2020. I tried to look back and find that in the actual poll, and I couldn't find that wording. But if that's true, and only 71% trust him now, well, hey, almost 30% of Trump voters in 2020 don't trust him anymore. So I don't know. You could look at this so many different ways.
Yeah, but don't you think that trust, just to sort of get on Jim's side a little bit, comes from Trump being an obvious outsider? For the first time in decades, the political establishment was challenged by somebody on the outside, and look at what it did. Look at the outcry it caused. Look at how insane they've become with hatred for somebody from the outside.
Yep, I agree with that. And I agree that Trump is basically retribution for the way that the establishment, media, government, whatever, has treated the American people for decades. And they have just kind of taken a back seat to all the slights from Hillary and Obama. And, now I think Trump is like revenge for them. And so they see everyone else lying. And, if lying is what you got to do to get things done in the media and the government, well, then that's what we'll do to get what we think should be done, which hopefully what they think should be done isn't as scary as I'm worried about.
I think 2024 is pretty scary. I mean, Jim, you think that our esteemed governor here in California, Gavin Newsom, is going to probably take over for Biden. I have a different theory, but he's certainly been running as if a national campaign is in the outing, as if he knows something we don't. Now, he's a political insider. I mean, he's the very definition of a political insider. Do you think he knows something that we don't? And how could the tragedy that he's pulling off in California actually translate to a national run for office?
Yeah. So first of all, let me ask you, did you happen to see an interview he did with Sean Hannity about 6 weeks ago?
No.
Sean Hannity, typical, not, in my opinion, not extremely bright pundit, and, for the right. Gavin Newsom ate his lunch. He ate Hannity's lunch on this. And he came across as—
Is that hard to do, though? Is that hard to do?
Well, but I'm saying this is the opposition. Hannity is the opposition for a guy like— so Newsom is— I'll just, to make his case from someone who really detests the man. He is slick. He's handsome. He's wealthy. And as you say, he's got deep political roots in California and a big political machine. He is able— he can somehow ride the wave of reparations, in one case, and then disassociate himself from it the next day and not get any heat for it. He's already got the biggest state in the country. He'll have the left entirely in his favor. And up against a detestable personality like Trump, head to head, I think it's very likely he'll beat Trump. So I suspect he's got some obstacles, sure, because people understand, California is a mess, but compared to what? I just think he's less detestable than Trump. Let's compared
to the Philippines. Kirk, what do you have to say about this?
Oh, well, I was just going to agree with Jim. I actually had a similar thought when watching Newsom debate his Republican challenger last year during the election. I thought the Republican challenger was absolutely pathetic. And one thing that I learned to appreciate about Newsom, I think this is bad, I want to make this clear, but he does speak with moral certainty and clarity. Which we know in our culture is altruism and collectivism. He's really good at speaking with that certainty and spinning things in his favor. He has a real skill for that, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's terrible. That makes him a very dangerous demagogue. I think in the election that they had when they tried to recall him, if Larry Elder had gotten up there, I think to debate him, he might have had a very formidable opponent, because Larry at least came from semi-libertarian roots, and I don't think he buys in too much to that, to some of those same premises. But we'll see, folks. We got another topic to go on to here, so I'm late to the game, so I'm just reading these topics straight out here. Apparently, the family of William Gladstone, who was one of the great 19th century liberal prime ministers, will travel to the Caribbean and apologize for their family's role in the transatlantic slave trade. Rishi Sunak, I don't know who that is, somebody can enlighten me, has recently refused to apologize for the UK for the slave trade. What do you make of this? Folks, I'll throw it out to the panel. Is Thomas still here? Is he gone?
Yeah, no, I'm still here.
Thomas, since you're there, since you're in the land of the formerly free, tell me what you think of this insanity.
Do you know what? Rishi Sunak is our prime minister, so he's the guy in charge of the country. And there are many things I disagree with him about, but I love the fact he's taken the stance of, I'm not going to apologize for what's happened, and we need to be focused on, going forward and not getting caught up in like the mistakes of the past. Yes, learn from them, do better going forward. So I love that stance that he's taken. I don't understand why these people are making a big deal on flying out there to apologize for something their ancestors did. It's all about donating 100,000 to a university. It kind of feels like more of a publicity stunt than anything. It just makes no sense. It feels like it's come out of nowhere. And yeah, it's like, it goes on the premise of the sins of the father are the sins of the son. But
do you think Thomas, that these descendants are genuinely ashamed of this slave trader, John Gladstone?
William Gladstone.
No, William was the PM.
Was the prime minister.
He was involved in it. I believe it was his. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I believe it was his father, John Gladstone, who was born in the 1760s or 70s, who was the plantation owner and an actual slave trader. But William, I don't think was involved in that.
I think William was an advocate for the buying off of slaves in the UK, and I guess the Gladstone family was like the largest beneficiary of the compensation for slave owners.
Yeah, and the UK is still paying off that debt today, actually.
Interesting.
In other words, to be clear, the slave owners were compensated from after 1833, when slavery was abolished in the UK. They were compensated for their loss. Is that the case?
Yes, and his family were the largest slave owners at the time.
Okay.
Well, so thank you, first of all, for reminding me that there is a prime minister after Boris Johnson, and for straightening me out on my history here with respect to the Gladstones. Well, this now is getting pretty sticky and complicated. Kirk, what do you think? I mean, if they've directly benefited from slavery, if the family experienced a financial windfall from being supporters of slavery, and they're in the condition that they're in now financially because in part of the foundation laid by slavery, is it justifiable for them to go back and apologize, maybe even offer some form of compensation for what they did?
I mean, that's kind of, that thought went through my mind, because like part of me imagines like, if you feel like the money that you've inherited over generations is might be blood money, then you might feel like justified in giving back, so to speak. What, I guess 100,000 or 100,000 pounds for some education program in Guyana. But if I would think, like, if anything, this would be a good time to say, the reason why slavery was wrong is because freedom is the standard. And if you want to see a country like Guyana get rich, you should encourage them to embrace freedom to the radical extreme, even so as, exploiting their rich oil resources, which they discovered in 2015. And I remember reading about this on Bloomberg Business Week back from November. talks about a nation in the crosshairs of climate change is ready to get rich on oil. So yeah, if you want to send a message, I think this should be the message. Like, yeah, you guys should embrace freedom, and also if you want to become rich as a country and really overcome this.
Woz, what do you think of this new wrinkle that if the Gladstones profited, maybe it isn't such a publicity stunt. Maybe it is something that they actually should do to make amends. Not that they could ever make amends for holding slaves or supporting the institution of slavery, but making some form of amends. Do you think this is legit or BS?
I think it's likely both. I do see, like, if, say, I had a great-great-grandfather that I know took wealth from some people and I'm very wealthy because of it. I could see myself, out of a sense of benevolence, wanting to return or give or help the people out. But I don't think it needs a big publicity stunt, and I wouldn't apologize necessarily because I didn't do anything. I was just given this money, and the knowledge definitely makes a difference that where the money came from. But yeah, it's a voluntary thing. Maybe it will get, if anyone's going to do it, it should be those types of people rather than governments using taxation to do it. I definitely disagree with reparations in that sense. Hell, if anyone should give them money, maybe the monarchy should, since they're just sitting on all that wealth for show anyway. And they were definitely a part of it. But I don't know. I can see it going both ways with this one, that as long as it's voluntary and these people, well, and also that it's going to a university, I think that's a little bit better too. They could just be giving it to the government or charities or something, but this sounds like it might actually would do something.
Yeah, well, let's hope it doesn't get dumped into the black hole of charity in those regions. Yeah. Jonathan, I have some super chats here. Jonathan Honig for 99. Thank you, Jonathan. For 9.99, great show, great group. Thank you very much. It is a great group. Ashley shrugged for $1.99. She, first of all, she is the queen of phrases, and she says Newsom is a demonic Ken doll. Yes, he should have made an appearance. He should have made an appearance in Barbie when Barbie became a patriarchy for a short. Barbie Land became a patriarchy for a short period of time. He should have been the Ken doll in charge of it. That would have been very interesting. Well, folks, as usual, that was what turned out to look like a simple thing on the surface has become very complicated. Does anybody have any final notes on that topic too before we turn to topic 3?
Oh, okay, just one final comment, Mark. I mean,
go ahead.
If you open the door, okay, I realize that these are sort of voluntary reparations, I believe, if I understand, that the Gladstones may be engaging in. But if you justify reparations in general based on the, as Oz put it, the sins of the father, you open the door to complete chaos. And there will be no standard. I mean, am I responsible because American Native Indians were treated badly, and in many cases they were, and they also treated settlers badly. It was horrible. It was a terrible time. Are we all responsible for that? I mean, at some point you have to start and be just and base your justice on individual action. So I agree. I would not apologize for anything I was not responsible for. In fact, I would make the case that apology is impossible, because apology means I regret what I did and I didn't do anything. So
this I couldn't agree with you more. I have arguments all the time on social media with Nina Turner, who's a former congresswoman out of Ohio. She's constantly posting, the same dither over and over again. One of a litany, a list of horrible things that she posts is that, reparations now. And I constantly say back to her, I didn't do anything to earn that. So nor did you. So no to that. But when you have a family that, Jim, if you were profiting right now off the wealth that your family acquired through the slave trade right now, and it made all the privileges in your life privileges. If you could go to a particular school because of the wealth that your family had from slavery, if you could start a particular job because of the wealth your family had from slavery, would you have a slightly different perspective of it, as the Gladstones may have?
I don't think so, and I'll give you an analogy why. So there's no question that I made a lot of money from the stock market due to the actions of the U.S. Federal Reserve. There's no doubt about it. And I don't know how much of it was or how well I would have done without the Federal Reserve. I think I would have done okay. But they inflated asset prices to an unprecedented degree in the 13 years from 2009 to 2022. And I was along for the ride. That should not happen. But now my responsibility is to be a very good steward of that capital. Okay. So I would just sum up by saying I saw a really great Clint Eastwood meme, and he said something like, I didn't own slaves and you didn't pick cotton, get over it.
Wow. Yeah, there you go. That's a hard one. Tom, did you want to say something?
I also think it's interesting because to go over and apologize for this sort of thing, you should also be able to, by that kind of same logic of owning something that's not yours to, well, giving an apology that's not yours to give. It's also the same as if they went over and started taking credit for all of the good that these people have experienced because they are now have more access to opportunities, because they are closer to America and not in Africa, which is a very unpopular statement to make if you want to make even more friends.
But it's a great point.
Yes, I love making unpopular statements because they're usually true. So, folks, these two topics have turned out to be a little bit more complicated than they first appear. Here's the third topic. MPs are calling for supermarkets to add a Buy British option to all online shopping. Whilst this is typically justified with economic nationalism, environmental justifications have been added. So what do you think about this? I'm going to go to my resident Brit, Thomas. What do you think of this? I have very strong opinions about this. I'm sure the rest of the panel does. What say you?
I think it's absolute ludicrous. So in the UK, the farming industry is probably the most overly regulated industry out there, to the point where the government flies drones over farms to make sure that they're not trying to hide extra crops that they're not accounting for, and everything is so meticulously fined. You can't believe it to every kind of degree. So to put another regulation or to insert another form of force into this just limits options when the cost of living is already gone up quite exponentially. I think it's more expensive here than, I think the curve has risen faster than it has in America. So this is only going to drive the product and prices up even more, because the British produce is some of the most expensive to buy because of the regulations. Yeah.
Of course, that makes a great deal of sense. Jim, you're a money guy. What say you to this?
I'm beyond being offended by this because I've seen it so much in so many forms. It is economically, of course, silly, but worse than silly, it's destructive. It's counterproductive. I think actually most people can grasp that. I don't think it's beyond that. But this is a raw appeal to some kind of a attachment, call it tribalism, some kind of nationalism. Buy British. You see the same thing though on a micro level. Buy local. People love to buy local. They love to be associated with their, local farmers and their local producers and so forth. And you see it sometimes in farmers market. It's mixed, because sometimes you can really get good stuff, that's grown locally and it's very fresh, and you should pick and choose based on what you, like the best. But people confuse their own motives, I think, with these emotional attachments. And I'll just make one final point. The only reason that they can indulge themselves in this kind of sort of emotional, irrational preference to say buy British is that things are so abundant and cheap anyway that it doesn't make that much difference. And then you have to ask yourself, why are things so abundant and cheap? Because we have such a great division of production and division of labor in our economy that allows people to, specialize and produce. And you really can get British beef that's pretty darn good and probably not, maybe only slightly more expensive than Argentine beef. So, they can indulge because the differential is not that great, they can indulge their emotional preference.
Indeed, environmentalism is a first world concern. Kirk, what say you to this? I mean, I personally like the movement to local farming and stuff, because I think the USDA sort of gutted they created these massive industrial complexes, which are great, but in some respects they knocked out competition, and now these smaller micro farms that are growing up in communities are giving people products they want. They're holistic, they're not that expensive, and I think it's offering competition to the big guys. But that's a separate idea. What do you think of this economic nationalism in the name of ecology?
I don't know if this has happened to you guys before, but there have been numerous times where sitting at a restaurant and I'm biting into a big bacon cheeseburger, and then I immediately spit it out before telling the server, this is disgusting. I can taste the fact that the dead cow and the dead pig that I just put in my mouth were not raised on land that I share a political jurisdiction with. Does this happen to anyone else?
It happens to me all the time. So I'm glad to know it happens to another guy.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. The concrete, whenever I talk about like buy American and buy local, one of my favorite concretes is the video game industry. So, I play video games. I usually play Nintendo brand video games. And if I were to buy into this buy American mentality, I would have to prioritize Microsoft and the Xbox or some other US-based game developer, hardware manufacturer. And it's like, well, why should I do that when I like the games that come out of Japan more than come out of America?
Indeed. So yeah, now Waz, you're an artist. Is Waz still with us? Yes.
Yeah.
You're an artist, so you're probably all for this ecology thing, right? I mean, so many artists are, and isn't it a good thing for us to buy local if it's supporting the fight against climate change?
No. I find the buy local thing to be kind of bizarre, actually, because what you're actually doing is, like, if you're talking about artists, say, is you're limiting them to the market that's closest to you. Whereas I don't just want to sell my art to people that live within 30 miles of me or 10 miles of me. I want it all over the world. So it doesn't make any sense to me. Well, not to mention, I'm bound by the price market here in my local area, where I could possibly make more by selling it in another area. It's not an overall help in any way to buy just local art and stuff, unless
globalist. You globalist.
Yeah, I guess I am. I am very happy to have my art all over the world, and I would be bored and disappointed if it weren't. So, but yeah, I think this is a pretty ridiculous thing. It said in the article too that they were even trying to blame grocery stores profiteering off of the cost of the British stuff. But then I don't know, if the British food is so great, why do they need a label to tell people that it's British? Because that's basically what they're calling for, correct? Is that it be easier for people to know what food was produced in Britain, and some sort of store or place to go to just buy British produce, right? That's what it comes down to in the article, right?
Unlike you guys, I did not read the articles. I just came on to the show at the last minute. So you guys are informing me. I have to say that whenever anybody says buy American, I think they are very un-American for doing that. And a globalism is the kind of slur that I like applied to me, because I think markets should be open, and the right is against it, and so is the left, apparently, in England. Well, folks, surprisingly complex topics today. Maybe it's just me for not reading the articles, or maybe it's just the nuance that you guys brought to the discussion that brought out all kinds of interesting thoughts with respect to them. And I hope our viewers out there got the same kind of wealth of information that I did. I have some upcoming shows to announce, folks. 7 p.m. UK time, the Fountainhead Book Club for the Ayn Rand Center UK members. The session will also be live streamed to YT members. Also, this is something sort of unrelated, but I will be having a discussion with the real Spike Cohen. On capitalism. Is anarchy the purest form of capitalism? It's going to be sponsored by Blood of Tyrants W. Hopefully I will acquit myself well. I have, of course, taken the point of view that it is not the purest form of capitalism. So I will be very unpopular in the room, I'm sure. I'll be surrounded by enemies, which is exactly the way I like it to be. It makes victory that much more sweet. And guys, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I have a heart out. I have an interview to do, but Kirk, do you have any final thoughts? So we can go down the panel and get some final thoughts as we exit today.
No final thoughts today. Thanks for everyone who contributed in the chat, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.
Yes, thank you. Jim, what about you? Anything? Any final thoughts? I'm going to go straight down the list here.
Okay, I'll just take this opportunity to shamelessly promote my upcoming course on money creation and its consequences, starting here on the ARC UK network on September 16th. It'll be a 9-week, 9-session course.
Good. That's something we all need to understand, because money is a mysterious phenomenon to most of us out here. Waz, any final comments before we conclude today?
Not really. I guess just buy global.
Buy global.
Yeah.
Thomas, I'm assuming you think the same thing.
You know what, was now that you've said that, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to go to the international aisle and I'm going to buy everything.
Yeah, the great thing about this globalization is I can seek health benefits, a workout regimen, and a diet from somebody all the way in the UK, from Thomas himself, which is we're going to be shortly doing this stuff. I love globalization. I love free trade. All of you should too. Thanks for joining us here at the reality show brought to you by the Ayn Rand Center UK. And always remember, folks, to check your premises. Peace.